In the northwestern region of the sprawling clay kingdom, nestled in a quiet and remote village surrounded by an expansive forest, lived a young boy named Nor. His life was simple, defined by the quiet rhythms of daily survival. On this particular day, we find him diligently working in their modest, weathered home. His focus is entirely on preparing medicine, his hands moving with care and precision. The herbs he crushed were ones he had painstakingly gathered from the forest nearby, their medicinal properties his only hope to ease his mother's persistent illness. The room is filled with the faint scent of boiling herbs, a scent that Nor has come to associate with hope, and yet a hope that always felt fragile. His mother, a frail and kind woman, with tired eyes that still shone with love, lay on a straw mattress, wrapped in an old but carefully patched quilt. When Nor brought the medicine to her, her pale lips curled into a weak smile. She drank it slowly, her hands trembling slightly as she held the bowl. After finishing, she placed the empty bowl aside and looked up at him, her expression one of gratitude and sorrow, all at once. "Thank you, Nor," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "You're always taking care of me. You're such a good son." Nor shook his head with a modest smile, brushing off her praise as if it was undeserved. "It's nothing, Mother," he replied gently. "I'll do anything to make sure you're okay." He glanced toward the door and then back at her, his tone shifting to something more practical. "I'll go feed the sheep now, and while I'm out, I'll gather some fruits and try to catch a rabbit for dinner. I want to make you a proper soup tonight." His mother's face clouded slightly with concern, and she reached out to touch his arm. "Promise me, Nor," she said with quiet urgency. "Promise me you won't go beyond the barrier." Nor hesitated, sensing the deep fear behind her words. He knew the barrier that surrounded their home was more than just a line on the ground. It was a protective ward meant to keep out the dangers that lurked in the wilderness. "I promise, Mother," he assured her. "I'll be careful." Satisfied but still worried, she let him go. As he turned to leave, her frail voice called him back. "Nor, I'm sorry, I can't give you more. Please deserve so much more than this, more than I can give. At the very least, you deserve so much more than this, more than I can give. At the very least, you deserve to choose how you live your life." Nor felt a lump rise in his throat at her words. He didn't know how to respond, so instead he gave her a reassuring smile. "Don't worry about me, Mother," he said quietly. "I'll be fine." As he stepped outside into the crisp air of late afternoon, he couldn't shake the heavy feeling her words had left in his heart. He focused on his tasks, tending to the sheep and carefully gathering fruits from the nearby trees. With a makeshift snare, he managed to catch a rabbit, his mind already thinking of the warm, nourishing soup he would prepare for his mother. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and bathed the sky in hues of orange and pink, Nor worked in the kitchen. The aroma of the soup filled their small home, a comforting scent that made him think, if only for a moment, that everything might be okay. When the soup was ready, he carried a steaming bowl to his mother's bedside. "Mother," he said softly, setting the bowl down on the small table beside her, "it's ready. You'll feel better after you eat." He gently shook her shoulder, expecting her to stir, but she didn't. Confused, he tried again, his voice tinged with worry. "Mother, wake up. The soup is ready." Still, there was no response. A cold dread began to creep into his chest. He leaned closer, his trembling hands reaching out to touch her. Her skin was cool, her chest unmoving. The realization hit him like a blow, and the bowl of soup slipped from his hands, spilling across the floor. "No, no, no, no," he whispered, his voice breaking as he fell to his knees. He clutched her lifeless hand, his tears falling freely now, soaking into the quilt. He sat there for what felt like hours, his sobs the only sound in the stillness of the night. The next day, with a heart weighed down by grief, Noor dug a grave beside his father's, who had passed many years before. He placed his mother to rest, his hands trembling as he laid flowers on the mound of earth. He stood there in silence, his tears long since dried, but the pain in his chest still raw and unrelenting. The days that followed were a blur. Noor moved through them mechanically, performing his chores with a hollow efficiency. He hunted, tended to the sheep, and read books he found in their home. The nights were the hardest. Alone in the quiet house, the loneliness pressed down on him like a suffocating weight. One day, while organizing the shelves, Noor came across an old, tattered book. Its cover was worn, and the pages were yellowed with age. As he opened it, a wave of nostalgia washed over him. This was the book his father used to read to him when he was a child, a book filled with tales of adventurers and their heroic deeds. He could almost hear his father's voice again, recounting stories of brave warriors who lifted curses, battled colossal monsters, and sought out legendary treasures. His father had always spoken of adventurers with admiration, calling them protectors of the weak and vanquishers of evil. Noor sat there for hours, reading and reminiscing. His father's words echoed in his mind. Now, a adventurer's life is one of courage and determination. They face the impossible and fight to protect what matters. The memory stirred something within Noor, a longing, a spark of determination. He remembered his mother's final words, "Choose how to live your life." For the first time since her passing, he felt a sense of direction. He decided then and there that he would become an adventurer, no matter what it took. The next morning, Noor stood before his parents' graves, his belongings packed and ready. He knelt down, his hands brushing the cold stone markers. "Mother, father," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I'm going to the city. I'm going to become an adventurer, just like the ones in the stories." He rose to his feet, took a deep breath, and stepped beyond the barrier for the first time. The road ahead was uncertain and full of danger, but Noor's heart burned with determination. Under the dim, flickering light of an enormous underground cavern, we see butchers clad in blood-stained aprons sharpening their knives. They move with a grim efficiency, preparing to carve up the enormous minotaur carcass sprawled before them. Its once powerful body, now lifeless, lies as a testament to the ferocious battle that had taken place. Nearby, the girl Noor had saved, her delicate features still pale from the ordeal. Despite their injuries, these brave men stand resolute, ensuring her safety as they reflect on the lives lost during the conflict. The girl, known as Lindbergh Clays, Lin for short, bows her head deeply to the soldiers, her voice trembling with gratitude. "Oh, thank you," she says, her tone heavy with emotion. "You gave your lives to protect me. I won't let your sacrifices be in vain." Her words seem to hang in the air, resonating in the hearts of the survivors, who nod silently, their eyes reflecting the mixture of pride and sorrow. Suddenly, the sound of hurried footsteps echoes through the cave. A woman clad in gleaming silver armor bursts into the scene. Her face, a mixture of relief and guilt, softens as her gaze lands on Lin. "You're safe," she breathes, her voice quivering as she kneels before the girl. "I'm so sorry, Your Highness. I should have been there for you." Lin smiles faintly, placing a comforting hand on the knight's shoulder. "Ines," she says, her voice steady despite her evident exhaustion, "this wasn't your fault. You were fulfilling your duty, and having you by my side would have invalidated the right of succession. Please, don't burden yourself with guilt." Ines Harness, known as the Divine Shield and vice captain of the warrior corps, nods reluctantly. "Still, Your Highness," she murmurs, "the thought of losing you." Her voice trails off as her fists clench. Before the moment grows heavier, a soldier named Darin steps forward. "Lady Lin," he begins respectfully, "we must return to the castle. Everyone is awaiting your safe return, and we need to discuss the events that transpired here." Lin nods, standing tall despite her weariness. "You're right. Let's not keep them waiting." Meanwhile, back at the castle, Lin's elder brother, Crown Prince Reynard Clays, pores over a map in his study. His sharp eyes narrow as a messenger relays the details of the Minotaur's sudden appearance. "A Minotaur," Reynard repeats, his voice laced with suspicion. "A monster of such caliber doesn't simply wander into the open. They're found deep within the dungeon's inner sanctums, not the surface streets. This wasn't a random attack. It was an assassination attack." Darin, who had returned alongside Lin, steps forward and presents a small, ominous-looking ring retrieved from the battle scene. "We believe this was the catalyst," he explains. "When the spell sovereign, Master Oak, examined it, he found traces of an exceptionally pure mana stone embedded within. The spell pattern matches those used by the magic empire of Gudus." Reynard's expression darkens. "Gadus," he mutters. "They've been testing our patience for months, first with veiled threats, and now this? They've crossed the line by targeting Lin directly." "They may be baiting us into a war," Darin suggests. "Their end goal could be the Dungeon of the Lost and the treasures buried within its depths." Reynard leans back, his hand steepled under his chin. "If that's the case, we must tread carefully. Their provocations are becoming too bold to ignore, but a hasty retaliation might play into their hands." He pauses, then shifts his focus. "What of the man who saved Lin? A Minotaur isn't something just anyone can defeat." Darin reports what little they know. He was a mystery to the Shadow Company, disappearing before they could apprehend him. However, from the battle's aftermath, it's clear he's highly skilled. At the Adventurers Guild, Nor enters the bustling hall covered in grime. The guildmaster, a grizzled former A-rank adventurer, greets him with a mixture of relief and curiosity. "You're alive," the guildmaster remarks, his sharp eyes scanning Nor. "That monster near the dungeon site yesterday, I feared the worst when you didn't return after work." Nor scratches his head, feigning ignorance. "I was being tailed by some shady folks last night. I headed straight home to avoid trouble." The guildmaster frowns, motioning to Nor's disheveled appearance. "And the dirt?" "Gutters," Nor replies nonchalantly. "Cleaning them out this morning." The guildmaster lets out a dry chuckle. "Lucky you didn't cross paths with that beast. Even I wouldn't stand a chance against something like that." Unbeknownst to the guildmaster, Nor had indeed crossed paths with the so-called beast, though to him it was just a cow. As they talk, the doors swing open, and Lin steps in, her presence commanding attention. She approaches Nor with a bright smile, using a subtle concealment spell to shield their conversation. "I found you," she says, her voice warm. "Found me?" Noor tilts his head in confusion. "Using a detection spell," Lin explains. She glances around at the gathering stairs and gestures for him to step outside. Once outside and away from prying eyes, Lin turns to Noor, her expression sincere. "I wanted to thank you for saving my life. Without you, I wouldn't be here today." Noor waves off her gratitude. "It wasn't much. Anyone else would have done the same." "But they didn't," Lin counters, her voice firm. "You did. Please, let me repay you." "I don't need anything," Noor replies with a shrug. "Your thanks are enough." Lin's persistence, however, soon brings her to tears. "Please," she insists, her voice cracking. "I owe you my life." Her childlike determination reminds Noor of himself as a boy, stubborn and unyielding. Sighing, he finally relents. "Fine, I'll meet your father, but no extravagant rewards." The scene transitions to the Grand Clay's estate. Noor, still in his work clothes, marvels at its splendor. Inside, he meets Lin's father, who warmly thanks him and offers treasures, lands, and even a storied sword. Noor refuses them all, but accepts the sword upon realizing it's more practical than ceremonial. Later, Lin's brother and the warrior Gilbert take note of Noor's strength and are curious to test him. As the chapter closes, Gilbert challenges Noor to a duel, and the tension builds as their eyes meet.